really hedging my bets with the titles and thumbnails, you know. I figure if I'm streaming every single day, I have the opportunity to experiment constantly. You know, figure out what is the most effective way to start a stream. What is the most effective way, when is the most effective time to end a stream? What's the most effective way to get people to send you money while you're streaming? When is the most effective time of day to stream? And when will you stop overthinking it and start the goddamn stream? I I feel like I've been self-justifying how long it takes me to start my streams each morning because well, I don't really expect people to be awake during the morning, and certainly not ready to watch a stream, especially not on like a work day, you know, a Monday like today. Not a big expecting a live stream day for most people, I think. Hello, co-pilot Coco. You're the very first person in here. Uh, you know, it's an opportunity for me to experiment constantly with all the presentational aspects of doing a live stream when I'm doing it every single day. So, you know, I can do. Yesterday I tried like more of a sex appeal thumbnail, you know, just like a straight up tits. And today I just made the ugliest face I possibly could. So, you know, we'll see which one performs better. Yesterday's video had exactly the effect I hoped for. No matter how much I talk about this, I'm always going to have commenters who, for some bizarre reason, think they understand how like YouTube's algorithm works better than I do. I really don't get it. Like, I don't get how people who aren't themselves career YouTubers can like try to talk down to me when I'm sharing my perspective on what I know is happening from an insider's perspective as somebody who has worked for YouTube for fucking a decade. But the way that YouTube handles my channel is very chaotic. Very, very chaotic. I actually don't know if I've ever seen another channel that has as sporadic of handling. Part of it is YouTube doesn't really like it when you switch up categories. Like, you have the option, there's a, you know, when you're making content, you pick what category of content it is. So for my channel, the default is film and animation, because most of what I talk about is film and animation. Historically, most of my content has been that. But if I release like a music video, I'm putting it in the music category. So YouTube is like choosing a subsection of what is already a small subsection of my viewer base to show that content to, like the intersection of the small number of people who still click on my content in general and also click on music content, you know? So it's been fascinating to watch the way that YouTube like isn't even letting people know when I release music at this point. I put out this song by Daybreak and it had 250 views, which I think is a historic low for my channel. But meanwhile, it was getting a lot of views on Twitter, where it's very easy to just keep promoting the same thing over and over again all day, you know? And for all week, if you want. Like, every morning, I'm like, hey, by Daybreak. But, you know, wake up early, I slap 3 rappers by daybreak. The lyrics are accurate, it is my real life. I wake up really early, and by the time the sun is up, I've usually gotten angry at somebody on the internet. So that's what that song's about, pretty much. So, you know, I've usually screamed at Vito by 9 a.m. is another way you could title that song. 9 a.m. Eastern Standard. He's probably just still awake or something in LA. But yeah, so I released this song, and it was immediately apparent to me that like nobody saw this at all. You know, like And it wasn't like a negativity thing. Like, it didn't have dislikes. It didn't have any negative comments. It actually only had likes and positive comments. So I was just like, well, okay, so it's not that people don't like the song. YouTube's not showing it to anybody. So what do I do about this? Like, how do I use YouTube as a promotional tool for my music if it is outright going to refuse to show people that I'm posting music on this channel? Because, you know, building a new channel would be its own whole challenge, its own slew of issues. Trying to protect the mic. I don't know why it got so goddamn windy all of a sudden. Is there a fucking hurricane coming? Jesus Christ. What was the channel you're supposed to subscribe to nowadays? We Watch Anime, if you want the anime content. Of course, there's a guy using like a hedge trimmer ahead of me as well. In addition to the wind, there's a hedge trimmer. Bill Sabab, that's really funny. How many impressions do I hope for when I release stuff on YouTube? I mean, I'm hoping for an infinite number. Every video I make, I'm like, fucking maybe somehow this one pops, you know? But it's pretty hard to predict, like, what it's going to be. And sometimes, like, the prediction I had originally comes true, but only years later, you know? Like, the Anime Alphabet videos have continued growing over the years and are getting close to, like, the view goals I had for them, but I wanted those views within 6 months, you know? It's like, I knew all these people would enjoy this video. Why didn't any of them find it 2 years ago, you know? Why did nobody know about it? Why didn't people have the chance to see this until it was already out for 2 years, you know? That's the struggle I'm dealing with on YouTube, is like, I know the content is good, I know the audience is there, but I'm not being connected with the audience, you know? So basically, the only way I know how to deal with that is by being utterly ruthless, you know, just constantly insisting on the content. So, you know, the tactic yesterday was, all right, I'll just perform this song live over and over again on live stream, because I know for a fact every live stream I've done has gotten 2,000 views by the end of a couple of days. And what do you know? It's got over 2,000 views within a day. So, you know, basically, as long as I do anything on this live stream, I can guarantee it can get 2,000 views. It can get more than that, depending on the title, the thumbnail, the subject matter, you know. 2 of the live streams have gotten over 5,000 or around 5,000, something like that. The Drake one and the gender war one. I keep mentioning that both of them have war in the title, and I think that's what did it. I haven't come up with a good third war. If anybody has a good idea for a war-based title that I can rant about on my next live stream, please let me know, so I can keep the war train, there's a war campaign? The war campaign going? There you go, yeah. War campaign. You thought I said Drake won for a second. I would only say it in such a disgusted tone that you could tell I was like, horrified to be saying such a thing, you know? No. I have not stopped being immersed in the Kendrick and Drake beef. Today was the first time I actually, like, you know, just put on Not Like Us and Meet the Grams, like, with the lyrics open, and to just sing along to them, you know, realizing, wait, I do know these songs already, shit. Yeah, let's do this. Fun day. I had to explain the Kendrick and Drake beef to my parents, each of them individually, just because, like, I can't get it out of mind, you know? Like, I can't finish. It's basically like, you can't have a conversation with me if you don't understand this thing, you know? So that's why I think, you know, back when I first started on YouTube, I was a brony YouTuber, and my original intention was to just spend a year doing that and then become a gaming YouTuber, because I knew that would get attention. But by the time I had been doing it for a year, a ton of gaming YouTubers had emerged, and I felt like I'd missed my chance, you know, to really do the style of videos that I thought I wanted to do in that field. So Instead, I went back to anime, and to me, there just wasn't enough presence of like hardcore anime fandom on YouTube for it to be viable unless I created a hardcore anime fandom on YouTube. So a lot of my early content was just, you know, explaining what are like more obscure anime, talking about studios, talking about how production works. And even I'm a very tertiary informant. You know, I don't really have firsthand knowledge of almost anything other than my own life and experiences and thoughts. So it's like, I know lots of people who know people or who have been in the room when a thing was happening, you know, but I wasn't in that room. I just know the stories from all the other people. So I think being someone like me, it allows you to have a very broad lens perspective, but not to really communicate a lot of hard truths, you know, which is sort of what gonzo journalism is about in my mind. But I don't really believe in hard truths, so that's not a problem for me on like a philosophical level. If anybody wants me to rant about literally anything, drop a super chat. I'll do it. I'll talk about whatever. I've got a limited run on this particular episode because I forgot to charge my portable battery. So, you know, I'll probably only be streaming for like an hour and a half before my camera dies. So, I look good today? Thank you. I don't feel like I look that good. I just had a shower, so I look clean, but, you know, got the Heihachi eyebrow situation going on. Got my gray hairs out and everything, which I'm proud of. I like having gray hair. I actually kind of wanted to be all gray. That's why I was so eager to lean in on the witch imagery, because I knew this was coming, you know, like, I've been going gray for a long time, like since in my early 20s, but it wasn't really like visible on camera because it was too subtle in the mix of my hair. And so it's only been in the last couple years that like it's finally become that in the daylight it's just like, oh wow, you are very gray in the front. It immediately, like as soon as that happened, the way that people in public treat me changed from like always, you know, thinking that I'm younger than I am to always thinking that I'm older than I am. Wanted to thank me about Haibane Renmei, would have never heard about it without me talking about it. Now one of your favorites, I'm glad. That was, I think I mentioned this in the Anime Alphabet video, that it was voted like one of the top, like most beloved shows by anime bloggers in the 2000s, because like at the end of 2009, basically every anime blogger made their top 50 of the decade list, and then this one dude called Aqua Blue Sweater, who's a statistician, made a you know, like crunched all the numbers and figured out what the anime bloggers considered to be the best anime of the 2000s. I believe Haibane Renmei was in the top 5, if not like the number 1. I don't remember. I probably said it in the video. I personally think in that sense it's kind of overrated because, well, I don't know. You can't overrate heart, right? Like if it just speaks to people on that level in spite of its technical flaws, then that in itself is praiseworthy. I mean, I think Yoshitoshi Abe is a fucking artistic genius, and he wrote the whole thing in like a week or something like that. Like he just kind of plopped down. I know he had done the first 2 chapters as doujinshi, and then he, you know, showed those to his, like the producer who he had worked with on Lane, and that guy was like, yeah, write the rest of this, just make this a script, we're doing this as an anime. And he was like, okay. And then they did it. Oh weird, I ended up in a totally different direction than I thought I was going. I'm so lost right now. But I'm gonna end up back in the usual forest, which is not where I was trying to go. Alright, we've got some super chats coming in. Hell yeah. Mally Magnum with Canadian $2. Rant about Gundam being the most underrated IP. Well, I can't say enough about it because I haven't read that much, and like, I know that the manga supposedly gets like much better as it goes. Gundam, of course, is Battle Angel Alita in English to the English-speaking world. But It was, I believe, began in the 80s. I think it's still going. Like the second run of the manga is still going. So it's one of those ultra long runners and ultra violent, very like 80s style, post-apocalyptic, cyberpunk action type shit. Of course, there was an American film made by Robert Rodriguez. I thought it was fun. I enjoyed it. It was a little too PG-13 for being Battle Angel Alita, which is like people's brains spilling out manga, you know? Like, I mean, it was a very violent PG-13 movie, but making Gundam into PG-13 kind of is like, well, I don't know. The darkness is part of the point of it, you know? It's a very bleak manga. So, you know, the original anime OVA was really fucking good. It looked just really gorgeous. But, again, both the film and the original OVA, they really adapt early chapters of the manga. And so there's never been, like, public consciousness of the deeper parts of the story that people who really like it actually think make it great, you know? Including on my part. I've only read the first volume. So yeah, I can't truly sing its praises, but I've heard the word about Gundam. Alright, Cosmic Blue with $10. Thank you very much. What's up with Miyazaki's depictions of love and relationships? To me, it makes sense for kids like in Ponyo, but in like The Wind Rises or Howls, etc., it feels hollow or unearned almost. I disagree with you, but I think it really depends on what love is like for you. I'm the type of person who does just kind of, I either click with a person or I don't. It's like an all or nothing thing for me. So, you know, if I have to struggle with figuring out somebody's place in my life, they will quickly lose it. Like, if somebody can't figure out exactly what kind of relationship I'm supposed to have with them, I don't want one, you know? Like, it's got to be very immediate and clear. What is the intentions? What are we here for, you know? Because I don't want to have to be second guessing or living in doubt about anything, you know? So all the relationships I've had have been very immediate, and when I'm talking about romantic ones. You know, the person, ironically enough, even though good lord, the wind, I hope you can hear me. I'm walking on a major road and there's wind. I'm gonna get to a park soon. It won't be so bad. Oh great, ambulance. Yeah, sure. Norfolk, I love it. I love you, Norfolk. All noise, all the time. This is why I rap the way I do, by the way. Like, this is why all of my music is me fucking shouting at top of lung over chaos. Because this is what I grew up around, as a noise environment. I'm trying to be audible over this. Okay. You can hear me good. I'll keep talking about the stuff. This isn't easy on my vocal cords, though. Makes me want to drink. But yeah, I think I relate a lot to the romance in The Wind Rises, because it's, I mean, you really do see the whole courtship in my mind. It's like these two people meet in, I mean, first of all, they met as like teens, right? They're on the train and they meet, and already there's romantic like sparks between them right away because they both know French. Like, they're both basically, they share obscure hobbies that makes it obvious right from the get-go that they would be friends. And then as the situation plays out, we see both of them to be just like incredibly good-natured, helpful people who are like, you know, just trying to make everything work out. And especially the guy, he like carries her aunt all the way home, you know, and like asks nothing in reward, doesn't even give his name, just disappears. So this woman basically spends the next 5 years thinking like, that was the most selfless man I've ever met in my fucking life. He literally saved our family. Like, I would do anything for that guy. Where the fuck is he? And then she reunites with him in a context where once again he is selflessly saving her stuff. So she's like, oh, you are exactly who I thought you were when I met you last time. Like, all that 5 years of ideation is justified. Now in his case, there wasn't that buildup. He just is like, oh wow, this girl's really cool and nice and she likes me. This is the first time he's had like a reason to be interested in a woman, I think, you know? I mean, the character is portrayed as kind of hella autistic, you know? Like, he's not a sensitive person, he's not like, which ends up being the whole, like, the drama of the way this film goes is that as beautiful as their relationship is, as easily as it comes together, it is just as easily undone because they're only together for like a couple of years. She gets tuberculosis and dies. And basically, because of the fact that what she loved about him is the fact that he was so dedicated to his work and to like doing what he thought was going to, you know, make things better for people, then she always stuck by his side and kept encouraging him to keep working on the planes. But in the end, he realizes like, yeah, well, this didn't really help society though, and like I kind of knew all along that my side was wrong. You know, like him and his friend, the whole movie are like, they want to get to work on planes and they want to, you know, help their nation, but they also think their nation is fucking up. And like, there's this, you know, this undercurrent of like, well, I could have probably stopped this or just not been involved at all and spent more time with my wife, but I was too obsessed about making planes because it is my passion. And he basically put his passion for planes over his passion for her because, you know, it came to him first in his life and it's sort of what grew him as a person. But, you know, looking back on it, he kind of ends up feeling like maybe I should have left that in my youth and, you know, spent my time with my wife before she was gone, because now he feels like there's nothing left, you know, like they lost Japan, he lost his wife, he's definitely not interested in making warplanes anymore, so he's just like, well, that was all regrettable on my end. And that's why it's such a soul-crushing movie. At least that's my take on The Wind Rises. I watched it pretty recently because I've got a big ass script about it, comparing it to Perfect Blue. I wrote like 40,000 words about Perfect Blue before I got to the Wind Rises section of the video and realized I needed a break. This was like a month ago, so at some point I will finish that, and that is probably the most special script I've written in a long time, but it's very, very personal, it's very, very long, and I still have to completely parse The Wind Rises. Mally Magnum with Canadian $2, thank you very much. Rant about Trash Taste, specifically Joey and Garnt. I've never watched Trash Taste, and I think part of it is that I don't know who that third guy is, and he does like a lot of the talking, and I'm always just kind of like, who is this guy? And like, I don't know, it has always felt to me like the existence of that podcast kind of relied on you like already being interested in these guys, and I never really watched their content in the first place, you know. Like I had seen some Gigguk videos, but when I met Gigguk was when I really had a personal impression of him, you know. And I've never heard anything but positive shit about the Anime Man. Everybody says that guy is like a saintly fucking figure, you know. So I have no reason to dislike either of them as people, but I feel like I would have an easier time hanging out with them like in a real life context to talk about stuff they're really interested in and not their like, you know, all right, let's see how much we can make ourselves care about tangentially anime related crap to, you know, sell to our audience today. That's just the vibe I've gotten. I don't know, like so many of the titles of the episodes are things like, we don't even watch anime anymore, which is exactly why I named my anime channel We Watch Anime, just to stand in exact contrast with Trash Taste. Like, oh, these guys don't watch anime? Well, we do. if you'd like to watch an anime show from people who watch anime, we watch anime. That's basically the pitch. But yeah, you know, again, Garnt and Joey seem like great. I mean, I've met Garnt. He is a great guy. Joey, from all accounts, is a great guy. So I'm sure that their charisma can carry a podcast. There's also that other guy. You know, I've never seen like a clip or a segment that felt like it spoke to me, person who does still watch anime, you know? Especially because Garnt, like, really is about, like, isekai and, now those Korean, like, power fantasy books and, like, I don't know. I like stories that make fun of power fantasies, you know? Like, power fantasy is like the enemy of my tastes, so it's hard for me to even relate to when they do talk about anime related stuff. You think you've aged out of the type of content they produce? I don't know. I don't think you can really... I used to think that... I don't think content can really appeal to an age group. I think it just appeals to a maturity level, and most of us, you know, grow past that maturity level. I think that it is a mature podcast. It's for millennials who are like deeply steeped in anime culture but don't necessarily watch anime, which is more people than who watch anime. Anime is not that popular. Like, there are some anime that are popular, but overwhelming majority of anime is fucking straight to the basement, you know? I don't know why. I hope I don't get copyright struck for whatever the fuck this guy is blasting out of his car. But the above average viewer has arrived. I forgot this was the Above Average Experience podcast. I haven't even gotten to what I fucking was talking about, what I meant by the title. Solo leveling is ice cold though. Is that like a compliment or a insult? It sounds like a compliment, but I've heard a lot of... Well, I guess I've heard both positive and negative takes on that show. It just doesn't seem like my bag. Like, to me, for myself, it is a bad look for me to watch something I know is going to be bad just so I can make fun of it. You know? Like, even if I think it would make me money, the only one I've thought about, considered, is going back to Asterisk War Season 2 just for nostalgia. Because, like, obviously that IP fucking died. Nobody cares about the Asterisk War anymore, so I think it would be funny now to pick its corpse from, like, 10 years later. But I'm not going to do that until the 10-year anniversary. So that's, like, the end of this year. Can you believe it? It's been almost 10 years since the Asterisk War. The Asterisk War is a nostalgia property for my fan base alone. But yeah, like, I think when it comes to anime, like, when I think of anime fans, I mostly think about Vic and Hope. You know, my brother Victor and his wife Hope, they are deep anime fans. Like, they're deep in the sense that they've seen hundreds of shows, they've seen obscure shows, they know stuff about studios and directors. You know, part of this is just on Victor's end, growing up around me, seeing a lot of my content, but, like, you know, nonetheless, it has made them dyed-in-the-wool anime fans, you know. Hope, on her own path, not even beholden to me at all. She was, you know, an anime fan when they met, big into, like, Hunter x Hunter, Yu Yu Hakusho. You know, she's got fucking Yu Yu Hakusho tattoos. She's got a sleeve of all the girls from Yu Yu Hakusho up her arm. If you haven't seen that, go look for Hope's social media. Go to Vic and Hope. They just did a, like, 4.5-hour live stream, like, 2 days ago. So, yeah. Where they played that survival horror game that looks like Resident Evil on the N64. I don't remember what it's called. Anyway, yeah, Hope does got some top tier ink. Vic and Hope are married. Yes, they got COVID married in the kitchen. So on 4/20. So they just had their 4th anniversary like a month ago. Anywho, the fuck was I just talking about? Was I answering a super chat or am I just rambling? I guess I'm still talking about trash taste, kind of. Super chat any rant request to get me off of this topic, but yeah, I just think like most anime is not particularly popular, but like anime conceptually is popular. So people like Vic and Hope will be more drawn to like video games that have anime looking characters, like Genshin Impact, you know, which is something Garnt got addicted to. So like that's the kind of anime, like Genshin Impact is representational to me of like people who grew up with an even amount of like anime, Zelda, and Fire Emblem, you know, like if you're from that realm of like anime gamer, you read manga, you know, you probably have some statues, you probably have some posters, you got some nerd paraphernalia, you know, maybe you go see live action adaptations, you probably watch some shows, you know, but it's very rare that somebody is like so dedicated specifically to animation that that is like their life, and that they would go beyond like the, you know, 5 shows a year tops that are going to interest most people, you know. Just not a lot of people are going to dig through and find even in, I'm picky myself, but like I'm picky in a way where I'm not looking for like a mainstream hit that appeals to me. Also, I'm looking, like I'm willing to dig through every crate to find the obscure garbage that I want, you know. Whereas a lot of people are like, they're not looking to have to dive in, they're just hoping something good is made by someone who can get it in front of their eyes. Like when Masaaki Yuasa makes something, that's the, you know, that's the crowd, like the anime fan millennial crowd is the type of people who they hear Science Saru and they go, oh, I'm gonna go to the movie theater this month, you know, like that's an anime fan in America to me. But like, that is not anime watchers. That is anime fans. But like people who watch anime, you know, like that's a lifestyle. Like people who are watching 25 shows a season, that is a lifestyle, you know. And I want to speak to that crowd because that's kind of where I come from, even if I'm not currently watching 25 shows a season, you know. I keep up with what's coming out, what's popular, what are people talking about, you know. Give me enough time, someone will rant request me to end up watching whatever obscure show the anime fans actually care about that they cannot convince, you know, whoever else to go watch. All right, there's 50 people watching, 54. Somebody must have a burning desire to hear me rant about something incredibly specific and a surplus of income with which to produce such a rant. Want to be a producer today? You can be a producer right now. All you have to do is put money into the super chat box and you will produce a rant. It could even be good enough that it gets clipped into its own video. Then you'll have produced an entire Trixie the Golden Witch video. Somebody did that the other day with that short about where to publish your comic. We've got a $4.99 super chat from that one Lucario fan. Anime reviews and more. That's a great way to make your make your name into an ad for your channel when you send super chats. Like, make sure everyone knows, hey, not only am I that one Lucario fan, but I do have anime reviews and more on my channel. What kind of more though? I don't think you need the more, because I can't make any, like, it's cool that there will be more, I guess, but like the only way that that sentiment means anything to me is that I want to see anime reviews, because I can't make any assumptions about the more. Like, your way of thinking is like, it won't just be anime reviews, and I'm like, well, okay, but I wouldn't care that there is something. I care that there is anime reviews. So I do think you could edit that down. But nonetheless, just released a 40-minute Magical Girl Lost Media video. I see a Magical Girl right here. I forgot to include though. Asterisk video sounds fun, by the way. Excellent. 40-minute Magical Girl Lost Media video. Well, that sounds right up my audience's alley. So, you know, everybody go check that out if you like Magical Girls and Lost Media. I've seen Lost Media is one of those things that I'm really glad other people are into, so that they can make videos about it and I can learn all of it without having to do any research. Because you know, I've always been kind of a research rabbit holer, where like I get You know, I get interested in something and I gotta know everything about it. But I Lost Media has never specifically spoken to me in that way, where I'm like, I gotta find this thing because it, you know, it doesn't exist and like everybody forgot about it. But specifically when it's like categorical, like Magical Girls, I do think that's interesting, because then anybody who's like, I must know everything about Magical Girls, I must underturn every rock, which is how Magical Girl fans are. Every fan of Magical Girl fans feels like they have to watch every Magical Girl show that anyone likes, so that when the conversation comes up of which one is the best, they will have an opinion, and you know, not feel like a basic bitch for saying Cardcaptor Sakura. I hear sirens and I hear somebody yelling in a direction. I'm getting worried. I'm gonna head to the part of the forest that people don't usually go to, and I'm gonna stay over there. What really good has even come after Odd Taxi? I still haven't seen Odd Taxi yet. It's one of those, I came very close to it being a Patreon bonus episode request. It probably would have been the next one after Heike Monogatari, but we never got around to recording that yet because we still haven't finished the show. Because Bird has been way too busy, and I've been live streaming for a living. I hope it's not a shooting. That would be awful. But yeah, in the last year, there was a ton of great shows. We talked about on We Watch Anime. You had Hell's Paradise, which was fucking awesome. You had Skip and Loafer, which was hella adorable. A lot of people really liked The Dangers in Your Heart, which I thought was okay, but I haven't seen the second season, which people say is even better. Oh, what were the other really good shows? Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 was really badass. That was like the big hype, you know, big hypey thing. Slime 100 had a strong start, but I thought it kind of fizzled out. And that's just what comes to mind. Heavenly Delusion, yes, thank you. I knew there was something else I was forgetting that was really, really good from early last year. Zom 100 was one of those where I felt like it started with like a strong message, but then it kind of is just repeating that message over and over again, and like just doing like little episodic stories that I would probably enjoy more if they leaned more in on the silly and less on like the sentimental aspect, because that's where the show kind of just feels very young, I guess, you know. Its sentimentality doesn't feel very deep a lot of the time. But you know, it was overall pretty fun. Didn't help that it took like 3 months for the last 3 episodes to come out. So by the time they came out, I had really lost, like, you know, I'd lost the initial spark of intrigue, and I was kind of like, all right, let's see how they wrap this up, you know, and like it didn't immediately grab me back in or anything. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, this is just like the end, you know, of like a season that is not going to resolve anything for the show. So you want to trans your gender? Well, go for it. Do it. Trans that gender up. That's how we do it in my hood. Production issues result in the derail of Zom 100. Yeah. It was that, and you know, just I felt like when they introduced those villains in the last arc, like they all kind of just felt very cliche, and then they all were sort of dispensed of really quickly. That's really my problem with Zom 100. It would introduce something that felt kind of thin, and then you're hoping it's going to, like, you know, thicken up a little bit before it just kills those characters off, but it usually just kind of is like, oh, and then they're dead, let's move on. Didn't that guy suck? And it's like, well, yeah, okay, that guy sucked, but he also sucked in like a cartoon character, like, you know, showing exactly one side of a human personality type of a way. So that was an aspect of it that I thought got tiring. I'm gonna go hang out next to this big ass tree. Look at this tree. It's a big ass tree. I'm gonna go sit by it. There's some squirrels on this tree. Let's go commune with the squirrels. Alright, while I wait for people to super chat me rant requests, I'll start talking about the above average experience, since that's what I titled this stream. I think average is a really interesting concept because, like, average is like a mathematical idea that is really difficult to apply outside of mathematics, and like trying to boil other things down, like other aspects of life down to numbers, and then find an average for this guy. I had to show you that because I knew it would be loud. Oh, I hope he's not about to mow the lawn that I'm standing in. You know, this lawn is already mowed. He's probably going back to mow one of the other lawns. Escaflowne is excellent, although that's another one where it kind of loses steam in the later bits. Although I remember it having a strong ending, like it picked up at the end, if I remember correctly. Or maybe I'm remembering wrong. I can't remember. It's been a long time. But anyway, about the above average experience. Yeah, averages, weird thing to try to boil stuff down to averages. And like, when you try to determine things about people using math, like, just, it's like impossible to gauge how do you do that? How do you boil something like, I'm thinking, so one of the places we all encounter the concept of averages in school, like standard average testing, you know, it's just everything that's about trying to figure out, like, the whole system of grades is based on like averages. So when you make really good grades, you're considered above average. And basically it's like a sorting system to figure out like who is more average or above average in these certain categories. But like, the way that we test for those averages, like, it doesn't correlate to anything material, you know? It's just like a number being applied to a situation that you cannot judge without understanding in its whole context. And a teacher cannot understand the whole context of a child's experience by way of like them taking a test, you know? Like, you cannot, through the answers a child puts down on a piece of paper, determine where their head is at with regards to a subject. You can only figure out how well they can do on taking that type of test, you know, in that moment. It's really not even like a matter of their skill level, because there's so many other things that are going on in a person's head and in their life at any given time that are just not accounted for. So there's just like the idea of testing for averages, especially in terms of like intellectual categories, is bizarre to say the least, especially as a thing to found so much society on. All right, Mally Magnum with Canadian $10. Went to Japan to visit my sister and had 4 girlfriends by the end of my 2-month trip. They put me onto shows and Japanese channels I still watch. Rant about striving to build the above average family. Interesting story. You had 4 girlfriends by the end of your 2-month trip, and they put you onto shows and channels put you on, okay. They introduced you to, like, put you on to. I thought for a second you meant like you were put onto a show. Something like, you know, Matt versus Japan is somebody I know who that has, like, literally went to Japan and started going on shows, literally. So that's what was in my mind. But that makes more sense, that they put you onto it in channels that you still watch. Striving to build the above average family. So I think what I'm really trying to communicate here is that the concept of being above average is kind of bunk. Because there is no average. Like, trying to mathematically boil anything down besides math, you know, like, how do you like if I'm trying to count, if I counted all the trees that are in a woods and I said like these ones are coniferous and these ones are fucking palm trees or whatever, and then like I mathematically determined on average how many there was of each, or by comparison, that's like a math equation that can be done. But it also it's like a shorthand for, like, the only reason to do that math equation would be that there's like some kind of function you're trying to perform that requires you to know the comparison of these tree amounts. But like there's not a clear definition of what separates those trees besides what's been applied to it. Like the language we use to describe things is not innate to the things themselves. There's a bit I think about a lot. There's this sketch that we did, me and Victor, years ago on the Modal Soul Productions channel called Measurement Man, where I play a character named Measurement Man whose superpower is being able to tell measurements by sight. He's just like a bum. And the anarchist is Measurement Man's mortal enemy, who at one point screams, "You can't measure trees in inches, you measure them in trees!" But that's exactly what I'm getting at here. Like, inches is a concept you can apply to the tree for purposes that you need, but it's not innately in inches. It just is, Inches is like a lens you're applying to describing the tree for the sake of whatever you need to know that for, So I just realized the sexual connotations of what I just said. If you took tree as a metaphor for penis, think about it. Deep brain. Tree is not really an innate term anyways. That's also true. It's not a tree, it just is what it is. What categorizes a tree, I'm sure, is hotly debated among whoever studies that shit. So yeah, it is, I mean, the anarchist is a comedy character. Of course he wouldn't realize the irony of him using another human concept like that, but wow, the other side of that big tree is covered entirely in like a vines. I'll get the seal a bit closer. What would be my definition of above average in relation to family building? Well, it would not be. I just think that the concept of average is poisonous. I think that comparing yourself to other situations is just not helpful to you or anybody else, and actually will probably do a lot of damage to you. Like, just if you're trying to boil, especially if we're talking about just the entire human experience, down to like, what is the average experience and what is better than the average experience? Like, there is just no fucking way to qualify that. It's entirely perspective, like how you feel about it is all there really is, like if you feel like you are above average in some way, like I could understand, like, okay, so I would say that I have an above average level of vocabulary in the sense that I know a lot of words and I employ them frequently within my verbiage, so to speak. It's something that comes naturally to me to do that. It's not like a thing I'm trying to do performatively, except for just now when I was doing it as a gag. But like the now all I've got through my head is like spectacular vernacular, yo, hip hop spiritual miracle, lyrical spiritual miracle. That's the one I was looking for. But I don't like. Is it that like to say that I have an above average vocabulary? Like, I don't consider that a compliment in any particular way. It can be like a difficulty, actually. I see this something that Bird goes through a lot, is he's also got a big vocabulary, and he's not really like self-aware about it in the same way that I am. And what I mean by that is he's not, I don't want to use the phrase dumbing it down, because that makes it sound like you're dumb if you don't have a big vocabulary, which is not how I feel. I just think there's language barriers between everybody. And having a big vocabulary can help you with language barriers, but it can also build language barriers where you're using words that other people just don't know. And, you know, I'll watch Bird talk to like a 3-year-old or something, and like, I can tell that some of the words he's using, they just are flying over their head, you know? And that can apply to all kinds of different people. But like, for me, I kind of am careful with what words I use until I hear what words someone else uses, so that I can try not to say words that I think are going to confuse them, you know? There's a very racist way that could be taken, but it applies to all sorts of people. It actually, literally everybody. Like, I'm not gonna talk to my dad and talk about, you know, fucking how I'm not gonna start like using Norse mythology slang in my talking to my dad, you know, that I might use online. Like, just stuff that, you know, I'm not gonna start speaking in tongues, you know, in public, but like, I'm very conscious of who am I speaking to, what am I trying to communicate, what do I think they're going to understand, you know, and I also think a lot of people are unforgiving towards other people's lack of understanding, where, you know, there are people who literally look down on someone else not knowing the words they know, because they're like, well, how could you not, you know, like, don't you have a dictionary, like that kind of attitude. And I really look down on that type of person, because that's like literally showing that you have an above average vocabulary and below average like emotional intelligence, you know, which is a trait that I care about more than the quality of someone's vocabulary, you know. I've had conversations with people who barely speak English, who I can tell are more intelligent than I am, and I try, you know, like, I'm really trying to craft my sentences in a way where it's like, I'm not trying to condescend, but I don't want to use words that I am going to have to fucking explain, you know? Like, trying to communicate in a way that makes sense. There's always language barriers and, you know, misunderstandings and cross-talk. But, you know, I just think that when you start looking at people in terms of like, well, what is average, and am I above average or below average? You're inviting way too much misunderstanding into a situation, when all you really need to do is think about how you relate to exactly each individual other person on Earth, you know? I know it's too much to consider for the most part, but like, you know, a lot of people have like a vague notion of their neighbors or their neighborhood, or like the attitude of their neighborhood. But unless you actually know who each of those people are, you can't really have a perspective on it, you know? Whereas if you do know your neighbors, you know exactly what's going on in your neighborhood. You know what kind of people are there, you know who you do or don't trust. You have specific relationships, you know? And you could determine that like broader cultural, you know, information is like causing them to be that way, and so you could have an opinion like, the world is like this because it's inspiring this behavior in the people around me. But, you know, I think without that grounding of like, I literally have experienced this from firsthand from people, it just becomes this big assumption when you start being like, oh, well, the average person's like this. And it's like, how many fucking people have you spoken to that you know what the average person is like? Where did you get your fucking data? You know, like, and where did who fucking published that data, and who made the money off of that publication? You know, like, just to think that you can say something about average is frankly like hubris, you know. But you can talk about average within, you know, a context that is meaningful, like specifically if you're like, okay, well, between me and my two neighbors, I am the only English speaker. So on average, people do not speak English in this neighborhood. Now that's not an above or a below, it's a it's just a stat. That's like a place where averages, like, yeah, okay, that means something if you're trying to determine, like, am I selling, do I need the signs in my bank to be fucking Spanish or English, like, that's the level where averages come in handy, is like marketing, math, but to look at it on a social level, I think is very poisonous. And I feel like I've been poisoned by the idea of above averageness in a lot of ways, because when I was a kid, I was put into like above average class, above average school, and I sucked in those places because like just the expectations were different for what makes you supposedly excel, like it was easy for me to excel in the context of normal class, but it was really difficult for me to excel in the context of advanced classes. And also, like, my lifestyle kept changing all the time. Different aspects of my life were changing between those, different experiences. So it wasn't like a consistent, it's not just like, oh, I perform above average, therefore I should be able to do more work than the average person. Like, no, not really, it's like I excelled in this one context, but it creates this expectation then when you start failing at living up to the supposed above averageness. It's like, oh fuck, I'm a failure. Actually, what if I'm just average? What if I'm below average? And it's like, well, I don't know, who fucking cares? Like, what is average? Who are you comparing yourself to? When you actually compare yourself to individuals, like for instance, comparing yourself to billionaires. This is a topic I've been on lately about how billionaires are evil, right? Like, most people just have this vague notion of a billionaire, a person with billions of dollars. Who wouldn't want to be a billionaire? And I'm like, okay, look at each individual billionaire. Look at who they are. Look at what they've done. Read about their life's experience. Do you really want to be that person? Do you really want to be any of those people? No, you don't. You don't, because that's why you're not you're not them. You would know if you wanted to be them because you would be them. But you don't want to be them. Everybody thinks they're going to magically become a billionaire one day, and therefore they don't want to hate billionaires, even though the only way anyone's ever become a billionaire is by being the most hateable fucking cunt on earth. So, basically, once again, the message of this rant is hate billionaires. Here's another super chat from Cosmic Blue with $5. A lot of people who want to be put in the average box also want to stand out or be famous as well. Have your cake and eat it too situation, I guess. Yeah, and to me, in that sense, average is like, I think people who view themselves as average are really using that as a cudgel against everybody else. Like, when you say, oh, well, I'm normal, I'm average, so anything that deviates from the way I am is therefore different. And like, those are the cancer. Like, those people are the cancer of society. Those are the Karens. Those are the people who, like, they truly believe that whatever they have in their mind is what has been morally decided as righteous by majority. Like, just because they think it is reflected in the world they see around them. But that is just like a method of oppression towards other people. And the people who are the most insistent that they are normal are always the biggest fucking whack jobs, because nobody has to go around and... On average, people don't go around insisting how normal and average they are. It's just these tyrannical cunts who have to go around and say, well, you're acting different, you're acting weird, you're acting bizarre, and I don't like the way you're acting, so therefore I'm going to do something about it, and I'm going to gather 500 signatures from other people who think that they wouldn't want to be in the same situation that I found myself in, and I bet you can't find 500,000 people who would sign the petition that I'm in the wrong, so therefore you're in the wrong. Like, that's how you use averages as a cudgel. And the entire concept of America, United States, is meant to protect you from that, but it doesn't. So, good luck. Most people, when they realize that, I think, go become a lawyer. They're like, like, everyone's evil and sucks? Well, I'll just be the most evil and suck then. Like, that's the smart way to live life. but it's difficult. It takes an iron will. I don't have that kind of willpower. It takes me fucking 5 hours to get ready to do a live stream where I rant about whatever I want and get paid to rant about things that are interesting to me anyways. Usually. No one individual can possibly generate billions in value. That is true. I mean, well, and to look at money realistically, money doesn't have any meaning as something that is held. It only has meaning when it's traded. That's why I love the fucking blockchain so much, and like I really wish more people understood it. The day will come, the future will be built on blockchain technology. It's inevitable. It's just a matter of it growing enough to be usable, and that just takes enough people understanding. But the blockchain is just simply a ledger of transaction. It is a permanent ledger of when money traded hands, which is the only time that money means anything. Like, if you put $70 in your bank, it's not going to stay $70. It's going to be transacted continually because that money is being, it's being used by the bank to give as loans to other people, and then you collect interest on that loan that the bank is making to somebody else, which is why you're constantly making a transaction every couple of weeks where they add a dividend onto your thing. Like the money is not static. It can't be static. It's constantly appreciating or depreciating in value. If you're holding $10, like what you can buy with that $10 can change in a couple of hours. Like if the stock market crashes and all the gas ticker prices fucking churn around, your $10 just became worth less gas. It's that simple. So like thinking of your money as like a static thing, people are looking at billionaires because they're looking at the status and the power and all that, but like I think most of the people that actually are worth over $1 billion, it's like it's part of their grift. Like being rich is part of the image they're going for, because that's part of power is image, and it's why Donald Trump has always been like projecting himself as much richer than he's ever actually been. He's always made it out like he's one of the richest guys in the world, and he's just never been one of the richest guys in the world. He's been worth a whole lot of money, but he has sold his brand on the concept of being rich. And so like that's just so integral to the marketing for a lot of these billionaires, and a lot of it's a pride thing, or they just want to be the world's richest guy, have their moment in the light. But like when I've been talking about this a lot with Drake, where I say like, yeah, his net worth on Google says $500 million, but like he's definitely spent billions and billions of dollars. Like he might not have billions of dollars, but he has all the most serious mansions in the in all of America, each part of America. He's got the biggest house in the nicest neighborhood in Toronto. He used to own the nicest house in Beverly Hills until he sold it off. Now he's setting up camp in Houston, apparently. He's a degenerate gambler who has made these ridiculously high stakes gambles and probably lost hundreds of millions of dollars just to other rich people that he gambled against. It's not real. And yay, another great example of a guy who's literally gone from billionaire to bankruptcy and back within the same year a couple of times. It's like, it's not about how much money you have. It's about how much power you have to move money. And most people sensibly who have all that power and move all that money, they don't want the huge target on their back of being a billionaire. They would prefer that their money is staying on the move in investments and moving through different people. And it's not just their money, it's a bunch of people's money. It's an organization's money, it's a company's money. The company is its own organism. That's why it gets treated like a person in America, as stupid as that is. Because it should be treated like all of those individuals being held accountable. Basically, I think if you join an organization, everyone in the organization should be accountable for everything the organization does. Yeah, see how quickly most places lose all of their workers when they don't want to be held accountable for the bullshit that the people at the brass do, and see how quickly that fucking destabilizes mega corporations. Now you're thinking real anarchist. If I get killed, by the way, I'm not suicidal. These ideas are just the ravings of a schizophrenic, mad person. Definitely not couched in any real-life perspective or knowledge. Alright, somebody send me some super chats about things you want me to rant about, so I can go ranting about them. We've got a sizable viewership. This is doing well. I feel like we've tackled the subject of above average living and how it's a scam, how the concept of average is a scam. This is also why I've lost touch with using scoring. I've got a video about this I'll release at some point called like scoring will it die, just because I don't think it's I think it invites more negativity than positivity. I think, you know, trying to create like a conception of what is average and how far above or below average is a thing is just like it does a disservice to the thing. You know, you can talk about, I think comparisons are great when they're individualized. You know, like if you made, say, a comparison between each of Masaaki Yuasa's shows, and the point of it is not to determine which one is the best, but just what is different. What is each one trying to do? What is the same? You know, like how do they match and how do they differ? What, you know, what is different about the messages? How do they play into one another? That's interesting. How far above average or below average or close to average is each of them? Not interesting. And it's not that I haven't fallen into this trap myself. I have. I've done it plenty of times. But I'm here to tell you I was wrong and to speak out against using averages as a comparison. You don't know what the average is. You cannot gather that data. You don't have big enough brain. Not possible. Stop trying. Stick to your perspective and things you know. You can't know averages. Not possible. Except for in like very specific, you know, you can know the averages between a data where you, if you have all of the data and it's just what it, what's the average number of minutes that Kaneda is on screen in Akira? Like that's an average you can figure out. Who is it worth anything to? I don't know. Aswar is still a 1 out of 10 though, right? I mean, but like even contextually, so if this is an aspect that I feel like it's overlooked a lot in the way I talked about my scores, but I only score stuff that I have finished. So Asterisk War is the worst show I finished. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the worst show. There's actually probably tons of stuff I would score even lower if I actually finished it. You know, where like I just don't usually finish something I don't like. So that's why like finishing the Asterisk War caused me to bump the score up for Sword Art Online. Because like Sword Art Online, it's not that I thought it was the worst anime ever made, it's the worst anime I had finished. And then Asterisk War became, you know, took its slot. So it's very possible that Asterisk War is above a 1 out of 10. If I were, you know, counting every anime that exists and had to have seen them all. What about Berserk 2017? And see, I've heard, so I know Victor watched like all, if not most, or most if not all, I should say, of Berserk 2016-17, and he was like, you know, as bad as it is for the most part, there are still moments where just because Berserk is so good, like the source material is so good, it can't help itself but to be good, but to be a little bit exciting, you know? So even that I've heard is not a total 1 out of 10. Mally Magnum with Canadian $2. Thank you. New type is the meta. I don't know if new type is still the meta. I feel like new type has been the meta, but I don't know if it is right now. I was definitely saying that back in 2018. I don't know. Right now, I think the meta is oversharing. Like new type is more. like innate understanding, right? Like the new type flash is like you and somebody else, you kind of lock eyes and you realize like we're about the same shit right now, you know, like we're here for the same reasons, we're in the same state of mind, you know, we're clicking, we're on level, you know. And I feel like there was the revolution of that around the, you know, 2018, 2019, when people were really starting to meet in person, and then, you know, lockdown kind of put a kibosh on that. But I think that what we've learned in that close proximity to one another is that even amongst the people closest to us, there is just so little communication, such faulty communication, that everybody just needs to work on like revealing more. You know, everybody just needs to be more honest, to be humble. Actually, thank God you got me back to something I was going to talk about on this. Kendrick Lamar. I'm trying to summon the Candyman here. Kendrick Lamar, his breakout hit that finally was his first #1 back in 2017 was Humble. Sit down, be humble, sit down. Hold up, little bitch, sit down, be humble. Hold up, little bitch, sit down. Hold up, sit down, little bitch. That one. And it was a banger, song of the summer, great rap song, fun track. I think it's taken on another dimension of meaning after the Drake beef, because it is now very clear why you should stay humble. Because if you don't, Kendrick Lamar is going to gut you in front of the world. And ultimately, I think that be humble is the core message of Kendrick Lamar's music, because essentially what he's trying to say is, no matter how hot you are, no matter how loved you are, you're always going to be beneath God, beneath the bigger picture. You know, you can't be better than the sum of its parts. You know, like, or you can't be greater than the whole that is the sum of all the parts, because you are one of the parts. Like, you can't be #1 without there being people to compare yourself to. If there's only one, there's no #1, there's just you, you know? Like, #1 needs a #2 for there to be a number, you know? And the more people there are, the sort of more meaningful it becomes to be #1. And so Kendrick has been very insistent, I'm the #1 rapper. There's nothing you can do about that, so you should humble yourself before me. But he is also the #1 rapper because he humbles himself before God. That's the point of the song, is I stayed modest about it, she elaborated. This, that Grey Poupon, that Avion, that TED Talk, which is one of the funniest bars of all time. Because if you don't get what that is, Grey Poupon is a somewhat fancy mustard that you can buy at Walmart. Avion is a somewhat fancy water, bottled water that you can buy at Walmart. And a TED Talk is where people pretend to be really smart and go on about subjects. So like when TED Talk first started, people took it really seriously, and like people would watch TED Talks and then give all this information to their friends and act like they knew shit. And then it quickly became clear that like in order to keep having TED Talks, you know, they were just giving them to everybody, and like the brand quickly diluted, people stopped taking it seriously. This had already happened by the time Kendrick put out this bar. So I think the intent of it is, it's humble bragging. He's saying, I stayed modest about it, and she said, nah, this is above average. All of those things, just above average. But they're only above the conception of average, like, of the very average person, you know? Like, it's media average. It's average because Walmart is the most common place that you would go, and it's the fanciest thing at Walmart, you know? Like, real above average, real exceptional, you'd be like, you know, he'd be saying, I'm that homegrown, that fucking, what's that meme I had in Satisfying Video, where I'm like, 100% certified, you know, like, grade A, raw beef, like, that's saying I'm exceptional. But the joke is, you know, that she's calling me above average in this very humble way, It's the ultimate humble brag. The whole song is literally a humble brag about bragging about how humble you are and how everybody else needs to be more humble, because the only way they could ever outclass you is to be more humble. And he's basically challenging you that you can't be more humble. No matter how hard you try, you'll never out-humble Kendrick. And if you do try, if you try to humble Kendrick, if you try to put him in his place, he will remind you once again to sit down, little bitch, and be humble. And that's what he did to Drake. He humbled the fuck out of him. Humbled him right out of a $500 million Nike deal. Humbled him right out of a reputation. Humbled him right out of LA. Like, literally humbled Drake out of his place in culture, out of his seat of influence. That is a next level humbling like I have never seen before. And I think I'm very happy to see this transpire, because this is a grounds I can fight on. A humble contest? Who can be most humble? Come on. What's a greater test of ego than who can be most humble? Like, if you tie egotism, like if you make the cultural push, like, you can't tell people to be less egotistical. That's not going to work. If you tell people that the way to be more egotistical is to be more humble, that can work. It has worked. It's kind of how culture works. You know, it's how religion works. It's, you tell people you know, you can be cool by humbling yourself to this bigger picture. And I think that's where culture's going. I think that's what cancel culture and everything is like. Hey, we don't accept the idea that you can just be more powerful than the law. We don't respect the idea of above average. You know, you must accept yourself as average, and that average is beautiful. Melly Magnum with Canadian $5. Thank you. How do you feel about Kendrick playing with NOI imagery and then switching up and being overtly pro-Israel oligarchs, Jay-Z shit? NOI. This is not a phrase that enters this is not a phrase that comes before my eyes. I don't know what that means. I'm trying to think of what it would mean. Because I know he was doing the whole, you know, Zulu love thing and the Black Israelite stuff. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. Nation of Islam? Okay, yeah, that's the Black Israelite stuff. So I think Kendrick is a person who speaks in the most broad cultural metaphors imaginable and does it in a way to challenge whatever he thinks is a problem at that moment, right? So on Damn, all of that stuff, he brings it in from the perspective of, this is my cousin speaking. My cousin, who's a, you know, Black Israelite, he left me this voicemail, and it got me thinking, like, well, shit, what if this is like a blood curse? What if it is, you know, what if I'm an Israelite? Don't call me black no more, you know, it ain't facts no more. Like, my cousin Carl Duckworth told me this. And then on Mr. Morale, he's also talking about how his relationship with that cousin isn't as good as it was before he made that album, you know? Like, there's always a kind of an evolution of the way he's approaching things, and it's because his perspective keeps changing. And he wants to reflect that, and he wants to invite all the perspectives that he's gathered onto the songs. So, to me, I mean, if Kendrick had really been all in on, like, I'm a fucking Black Israelite nationalist or whatever, Nation of Islam guy, that would have been the whole album, as opposed to basically something that he references twice as something that his cousin brought up to him, and then kind of shakes off on the next album as, yeah, that cousin's a little wild, actually. He brought a lot of attention to that whole thing. Like, I don't think a lot of people had, you know, like, a cultural awareness of it as a thing that was going on until he talked about it on the fucking biggest record of the year, and, you know, got people going, what is this about? But Kendrick, I think, when it comes down to it, believes in a conception of a God not indistinct from the Christian one that he grew up with, that you know, that he is serving in the way that he behaves. And so whatever messages Kendrick is putting out there is just whatever he considers to be holy, you know, whatever he thinks is the, or even to reveal the unholiness of his behavior, but to say, this is the unholy part. This is why I'm not God, you know, this is what separates me from Jesus, is that I have these flaws. But the ability to recognize that and to just, you know, to say that those are my flaws is what gives him that power, you know, to admit the unChrist-likeness that he has, even as he tries to be more Christ-like, you know. Obviously Kanye plays with this stuff a lot too, but I think Kendrick does it better because he doesn't come off as trying to actively grift off of those religions. Like, I think he was playing around with the curiosity about that stuff on that album, and then, you know, ultimately is like, well, how does this fold into my own ideology? Where like Ye is out there just full-on code switching of like, now I am a devout Christian, and now I am this other thing, you know, and now I'm, so, sounding like an Anthony Fantano review. It's like talking about music caused me to lapse into his voice or something. Probably just because my fucking mouth is dry as shit. I need to start carrying around a water bottle when I do these hikes. It doesn't help that I always do a way unnecessary amount of walking on these streams. Like, I guess this is most of the exercise I get in a day, so I try to make the most of it, but I really do just be like power walking around a lot of the time. It's partly just because I'm trying not to, I always try to keep attention off of myself, you know, like, because I run into people as I'm walking and then I kind of change direction, and like, I'm worried if I stay in one place, then it's hard to find one place where I could be like loud. I guess I feel like if I stay in one place, I will get loud. Like, I'll get comfortable and I'll get loud, and then, you know, eventually there'll be passerbys who are like, oh, what's going on over there? I'll get stream sniped. Isn't that when somebody like streams over your stream? That's like when when you're streaming and then somebody else starts streaming to comment on your stream, right? I think. Or maybe it's just streaming at the same time as somebody else. Nightcore Gardevoir says I fell off. Of what? Hold on, watch, I'll fall off right now. Ah! I fell off! I fell off! I'm still falling! I'm falling infinitely now. This is what you did to me. You've made me fall off into the void. I'm falling all the way into the forest. When somebody intentionally invades your stream, I see. Like, they send people to it, or like they themselves invade the stream. It can be someone cheating in game using your stream or invades your public live. Cheating in game using your stream. Oh, like they're like screen watching you through your stream. That's actually hilarious. I'm surprised I never thought about that. Screen watching used to be such a thing back in the split screen days, because literally you have the same screen. So people would always be like, don't watch my screen, bro. It's like, dude, it's in my fucking peripheral. It's there. How would I miss your screen? That's when a black phantom appears. That's funny. Physical person right next to you. I mean, that could happen. There's been people all around me as I've been walking around. There was one point I passed by a building and a guy was coming out of the bathroom, and I was like, oh shit, this guy's gonna get picked up on camera. I gotta avert, I gotta run. Oh, I'm surrounded by squirrels again. Look at this guy. Look at him. Squirrel, squirrel. Super chats for the squirrel. I'm not gonna give him any money, but hello. He's going to town. We're gonna meet that stuff. He's a little stuff eater. Look behind you. Oh shit, there's a fucking ghost behind me. It would be really funny if somebody was able to sneak up behind me while I was looking at myself in my camera. Like, I could see like 300 feet that way through the camera lens. It would be very impressive. All right, squirrel. Sorry for disrupting you, but I'm walking through here. It would be exceptionally skilled of somebody to sneak up on me while I am looking at a mirror. Am I on drugs? I have smoked some marijuana today. Saucy. Juiced up like I don't give a fuck, like I don't need a nut, like I don't need a fuck. Juiced up like I don't give a fuck, like I don't need a fuck, like I don't need a gun. Who remembers Juiced Up? Trying to think of a good super chat. Any super chat is a good super chat. Dogs. Where are those dogs actually? Because the noise is coming from like across the swamp. There's just like a swamp over there. I guess there's a neighborhood on the other side of the swamp. And some loud dogs. It's a public holiday where I live. You think I'm not hitting the... Oh! I thought it seemed like my dad slept in late today. Huh. Well, I guess not everybody's off because Bird had work today, but... Because it's like Labor Day or something, right? Or Memorial Day or some shit. I have never been to a festival. I've been to like conventions and well, I guess the Nibrock Festival counts as a festival because they call it that. I'm thinking like a music festival, but you know, not anything but like a town fair like a year ago, 2 years ago actually. So no. State fair is not particularly interesting to me. It's just a bunch of fried food and shitty, dangerous rides. A bunch of obnoxious teens walking around the town. I do like festival atmosphere in general. I just like when there's lots of people out and about. But when that lots of people seems like overwhelmingly people I would not get along with, then it's kind of like, well, I don't really want to be here, you know? Like, I feel like I would get into a fight if I had to talk to any of these people. You like my hair? Thank you. It's all natural. Why does everything gotta cost money? I know, right? Life. I wish I had some right now. Money, that is. I've got a whole lot of super chats that have been sent this week. Last 2 weeks that I will not receive any of that money until next month on like the 21st. So tomorrow I'll get paid for last month. And last month I made like 200 bucks. So I'll have like 200 bucks. And then next month when all the money from this month comes in, it'll be substantially more than that. But yeah, I didn't start streaming till this month. So there's, you know, there's a timeline in which I die like June 20th and never get any of that money. And YouTube just takes it all. It's fucked up. No, it would probably still go to my bank account, but I don't have a will written out, so the government would get all that money. That would suck even more. YouTube pays you monthly, yes. YouTube pays you on the... Basically, on the 19th of every month, YouTube pays out whatever your ad revenue from the previous month was, and typically it hits your bank by the 21st. So usually on the 21st, I'll receive the previous month's YouTube money. So you know, it would have just been ad revenue from last month, but luckily on like the last day of the month is when I started doing these streams, and I made like $60 that day or something. So I'll get that on the 21st, and then everything I make this month will come next month. Patreon pays you on the 1st of each month, where it like charges all your patrons, and then typically there's a whole bunch of cards that have to be run more than once or take a long time to process. So it'll usually take like 3 to 5 days before Patreon's actually processed all of the money. And after 5 days, they'll just send it to you automatically. But you can withdraw it at any point. So like, if somebody signs up for my Patreon, let's say they buy a year of Patreon and they pay, what is it, $50 for a year at the $5 tier, I can withdraw that money immediately because it gets charged up front. So if somebody pays me $50 on Patreon, I can immediately go pull out 43 or whatever that I actually get, and I guess it would be 40, yeah, probably 43.70 or something like that. And you know, I could just withdraw it from Patreon that day. It would then show up to my bank 2 days later. But on the 5th, it will automatically send me just whatever has gathered over the course of the month. Substack is my favorite because Substack pays daily. So every single day, whatever you've made through Substack gets sent to you, and like in the previous day. So it'll be like somebody signs up, the next day I get that money. Or somebody gets billed, the next day I get that money. So it's very random when I'm getting paid by Substack, because most people have yearly subscriptions. So it'll be like a couple times a month I suddenly get $7, and then a few times a year I suddenly get $70. But that's how the Substack works. And then those are like the main, that's like pretty much all of my main revenue sources is YouTube, Patreon, and Substack right now. I don't think I have anything else that's really, like, sometimes, very rarely, the Amazon affiliate link I always forget about gets used by somebody, and I get paid by Amazon, but not usually. Alright, I'm getting towards the end of this here stream because my battery's at, well, it's still got 25% actually. But I am getting really thirsty and hungry. Mostly thirsty. I want to drink some electrolyte water and some fucking water. I want to say that I'll do another stream later, but every time I say that, it doesn't happen. Something always comes up. I always end up doing something else. But I think there's a strong chance I'll do a second stream today. And the reason is that we were up kind of late last night and kind of drunk, and then Bird had to work really early, so he's probably gonna pass out as soon as he gets home. And assuming I don't also pass out as soon as he gets home, I might live stream because Bird's passed out. But we'll see. We will see. I say this all the time and I fuck it up all the time. You know, the other day I did the 1 hour garage stream. I was gonna do another stream later, but then Vic and Hope were streaming, and they streamed for a long time, and their stream was entertaining, so I watched their stream instead. And you can do that too if you still somehow don't have enough content from my streams. Justice for $2, thank you. Would you recommend Patreon to a new creator? No. I would recommend Backed.by to a new creator, or Substack. I would not recommend Patreon. I'll go through the reasons. I've been on Patreon almost longer than anybody else. It's been my main source of income for like 10 years. So I have some appreciation for it, but I've complained about it pretty consistently for all that time, and they've barely dealt with any of the issues, and meanwhile competitors have sprung up that have dealt with the issues. So Back.by is my favorite platform. Unfortunately, I cannot get anybody to sign up for my Back.by. Because they don't, I don't know why, actually. I guess just it's not as user-friendly because it's new and it's not backed by any venture capitalists, so it's just being built by passionate people. But Back.by is blockchain-based. It processes regular money. It's not, you don't trade through crypto, you just trade through regular money, but the website is built through the blockchain. So when you build a page, when you make a Backed.by page, you are creating a unique instance on the blockchain that can't be removed. Like, the people who run it can't do anything about it. It's just yours once it exists. So you, no matter what you do, no matter how many copyright breaches, whatever, like, you know, there's nothing that can be done to stop your ability to trade on this platform. Now, Dick Masterson built this platform because he had previously built a Patreon alternative called New Project 2 that used traditional banking methods, and he had I don't know if that cut me off when the low power mode thing came on, and I don't know if that interrupted me. But anyway, Dick Masterson had created New Project 2 as an alternative to Patreon, and got blacklisted by the banks. Literally, well, specifically Stripe, which is backed by, I think, MasterCard, which is what trades them, like, basically does all money processing on the internet right now. So basically, payment processors blocked his ability to be a payment processor. So he created a blockchain-based version that could not be fucked with, that nobody could ever take you down from. I don't know why people aren't pushing it. I understand that it's still in development, but it can only get better by way of people using the fucking thing, informing the developers, spreading the word about it. People pretend they care about creators and then don't listen to creators when they tell them what's best for supporting them. On Backed By, you can set your percentage to 1% of what you give to the creators. You can set so that you only give 1% of your earnings to the creators. So every time somebody backs me on Patreon, 10% of that just goes to Patreon, who I don't like and have no reason to want to support. The only reason it's only 10% for me is that I have a grandfathered in account from having existed before they changed the rates to 20%. So anybody else is going to get a 20% charge. Now, on Substack, I think their charge is actually a little bit higher, but they're just better at, it's a better payment processing platform and a better blogging platform, which are the only two things that Patreon has ever needed to do. And even Substack is way too into trying to be like a social media thing. They got too much back end. I don't trust the people running Substack on the intelligence level in terms of like business moves I've seen them try to make. But I like the platform more because it is a better functioning payment processor and a better functioning fucking blog, which are the only two things I need Patreon to do. So every time somebody signs up to my Substack, I'm very happy about that, especially because I write a lot of exclusive content for there that's just not on anything else. So if you want to back me, Substack is by far the best bang for your buck proposition. I also just make the rewards cheaper on Substack, where if you give me $10 a month on Patreon, you get your name in every video. If you give me $7 a month on Substack, which is the only rate that I have set up there, you also get your name in every video. So it's just a better value proposition for you. Backed.by, the rates are even lower. $5 to get your name in a video, because I get so much of the money that it's worth it for me to set it that low and to try to get more people onto the platform. I've only gotten 2 people to sign up for Backed.by, so I'm not expecting you all to rush over there. I know how you are. I'm just saying, if you were smart, it's what you would be doing. You would be making your accounts on there. You would be doing all your trade through it. It's the only one that's protected, the only one that's not compromised, the only one that doesn't have venture capital interest all over it, the only one you can't get kicked off of. So please use Backed.by. Otherwise, I don't know why you wouldn't, but use Substack because I like it. It's the most creator friendly in the sense that it's a good blogging platform. So, you know, it's friendly to me as a former WordPress user and generally a writer. All right, I got a couple super chats that came out while I was on that big rant. Mr. Grafixable with £2. How do I not fuck up my gender transition? Don't do anything that doesn't feel right. You know, if you start doing different things and they don't feel good, don't do them anymore. If you start doing different things and you feel better, keep doing those things. That's about the best, most general advice I could give. We got summer number 15,532 with 777 in pound. Very artistically donated. Please talk about AI in relation to the education system and to creativity, especially anime. AI is the most overrated tool in the world. AI is... So the problem with people talking about AI is that there's this concept of the like technological singularity, where like technology is supposed to consistently improve at like this alarming rate, and like we've seen these big jumps in AI, so all of us understand that it's gotten a lot better, but it's still really far from good. You know, like everything that people are worried about AI's ability to replace is stuff that sucked, like photorealistic drawing. Who fucking gives a shit? You know, like stuff that looks like Pixar. I don't care that somebody else, that an AI can reproduce that. It has no soul in the first place. You know, nothing that has any artistic merit can be replicated by AI, because it can only understand things that it's pulled from other people. Now, AI can tell you interesting stuff about culture. It can tell you interesting stuff about big data and what data exists. You know, if you tell AI, like, draw a hot woman, it's interesting what its conception of a hot woman is, because it tells you something about the data it's collected, or the data it's being trained on, more specifically, since a lot of the times that's very controlled, and they're not just trying to feed it all data, they're trying to make it output specific results. So like AI as a tool for just having fun and fucking around, I think is awesome. I love making dumb little AI image, you know, using little AI image generators like Bing, or the fucking Facebook Messenger has my favorite. It's the AI generated stickers where you just type in fucking, you know, anything, and it just makes a cute little icon out of that. And it's shockingly robust, but again, none of it is functional enough that you can just like create meaningful art with it. You can use it to like, I don't know, you can make thumbnails with it. That's cool. You know, like you can, I do think there is a part of it in like knowing what you're looking, like what you want the AI to do. Like if you're looking for a specific result, I think it can do that. It's a tool, you know. It's, if you want like a dog with a hot dog body, or a dog dressed like hot dog, like you type that in and you just want to picture that, you don't care what it looks like, yeah, that's great. You know, it's great for that. People will say like, oh, you should have to hire an artist to draw a dog dressed like a hot dog. That's fucking stupid. People saying stuff like that, that is stupid. If you're using AI to serve yourself, great, you know? But like, people think that AI is going to create something that's going to displace them, and it just can't. Like, it can't come up with ideas. It can't have, it can't do anything that you don't tell it to do, you know? And even then, it can't do it, it can't interpret you psychically. It can only interpret like a gestalt based on the big data it's been fed. So yeah, I just don't think AI is anywhere near a level of replacing creativity, and I think the novelty is going to wear off quick because it's not going to jump in quality enough. Like, people, it has reached a plateau, and you can tell because in the last year there has been no improvement. The whole year that AI has been this huge big deal, it's been incredibly impressive, but there's been no like, and obviously people are going to shit on this because they're going to say, of course there's been improvement, blah, blah, blah. Not meaningfully, not in a cultural sense. It's like being trapped in, like, okay, in the same way that I would say graphics haven't really improved since the PS3. Like, yeah, obviously they have. Obviously new graphics look way better than PS3 graphics, but spiritually, it's the same thing. There has not been a leap where we go like, oh my god, graphics are revolutionarily better the way we did when we jumped from, you know, the fucking PlayStation 1 to the PlayStation 2. That was revolutionary. PS2 to PS3 still felt fairly revolutionary, but it, you know, it's gotten to a point where now we're just kind of filling in the details. You know, it's not like drawing a new picture. And that's where AI is at. It's getting better at doing what it's already doing, but it can't just learn to do a new thing all of a sudden. You know, like it's gonna get really good at doing what we're doing with it right now. And as soon as you realize that like most creative expression just won't require it at all, you know, there's just no reason to be afraid of it. It will take some people's jobs. It will do that, but only because the people who are running those jobs, I mean, either what they were doing is something that, you know, is it's going to be better for the people in charge, that it could be automated because it's going to save them money, or you know, I don't know, how creative could what you have been doing really have been if it could be replaced by AI? It couldn't have been that creative. Like, it's just not possible. I mean, look, you got to look at it this way, right? The kinds of people who are going to just be okay with AI art, like replacing all of the other art they like, they never were going to get into interesting art. That was never the audience. Like, the people who listen to Drake are not the audience of music. You know, like, music listeners can enjoy Drake, but it's not for them. You know, it's made to be just the most, like, dryly accessible thing possible that anybody could plug into, but nobody particularly deeply cares about it, you know? And like with AI, it's like, you're gonna have people who are so satisfied with the fact that they, like, there's definitely gonna be people who used to do, actually, you know what? Holy fuck, I just remembered something. Go listen to this Dick Show episode. The last episode of the Dick Show that I was on, just look for Trixie Golden Witch, the Dick Show, you'll probably find it. Look up Murlogic if you have to also. So there was a call-in from Murlogic. If you don't know who that is, he's a guy who, he's really autistic, he's really broke, he's like in his early 30s, and he's been living in like different assisted living situations for a long time. And he's a trip to talk to because he speaks well, but everything he says is on a different plane of existence. So his big thing is that he commissioned a ton of artwork of blonde-haired, blue-eyed white girls destroying Wonder Bread. Like, just wrecking shit on bread. And like, it's like a weird fetish. It's not even like a sexual thing as much as like a spiritual fetish. And he's got all these ideas for this show he wants to do about just like these girls going on a rampage. It's like, it's a whole thing. His whole identity is couched in, and he spent like thousands of dollars. All money he's ever come in contact with, basically, he has spent on commissioning artwork of blonde girls destroying bread. To the point that there is a ton of this you can now find on the internet because, you know, all that art is just out there. And he's too poor to afford commissions anymore. So when he called into the Dick Show, of course Dick said, well, why not use AI? And he was just like, it's just not good enough. They can't get the fucking fingers right. You know, like, the fact of the matter is, somebody who's actually passionate, somebody who actually cares about the spirit of the thing that they're trying to create, a real patron of the arts, will go to any length, you know, to make it correct. And AI can't do that. It can't appreciate the you can't tell AI, get the hands right. You know, like, you can tell an artist, hey, you fucked up the hands, you know, like, redo them. An artist can look at the hands and go, I fucked those up, I'm gonna redo them. And AI can't do that. It doesn't know it fucked up the hands. It doesn't get hands. So, like, and there's a moment where Murlogic, one of the funniest things I've ever heard on any podcast, where he just stops and he's like, have you ever looked yourself in the mirror and just been like, I can't believe how long it's been since I've ordered a commission? Something to that effect, and we were all blown away by it. He really puts a lot of the stock in his identity in his life and being able to commission that artwork. And AI is not good enough for that guy. And he is dirt poor. So I don't think AI has a shot. Alright, my arm's getting tired and my battery's running low. So I'm going to wrap up this live stream and I'm going to head home I will hopefully see you all later. I'm not going to make any promises because I only ever break them. Later.